Amber Hagerman was gone in 8 minutes. A 9-year-old girl on a pink bicycle. A normal Saturday afternoon in Arlington, Texas. An almost empty parking lot. A man in a black pickup truck. And then, nothing. When it was over, the only thing left on the pavement was her bicycle. 4 days later, Amber's body was found in a creek several miles away from where she had been taken. Her murder has never been solved. But her name never disappeared. And before we go any further, that matters. Because this is not, first and foremost, the story of the alert that now carries her name. This is the story of the little girl behind it. The child whose abduction changed forever the way the United States responds when a child vanishes. The family that turned unbearable grief into action. And the man who ripped a 9-year-old girl off her bike in broad daylight and who, nearly 30 years later, still has not been identified. Amber Renee Hagerman was born on November 25, 1986 in Arlington, Texas. She was the oldest child of Richard and Donna, and when she was taken, her younger brother Ricky was only 5. People who knew Amber described her almost the same way every time. Sweet, bright, lively, affectionate, protective of her little brother, almost like a little mother. She was a Girl Scout. She liked writing, playing with Barbies, watching Pocahontas, and riding her bike. She was the kind of child who made a house feel active, noisy, and alive. And that matters too. Because over the years, millions of people came to know only one thing about her: the name. The name on the alert. The name in the system. The name that flashes across a screen when another child is believed to be in danger. But before she became a symbol, she was just a real little girl. A daughter, a sister, a child with homework, birthday presents, favorite movies, and a brand new bicycle. On Saturday, January 13, 1996, Amber and Ricky were at their grandparents' house in Arlington. At around 3:10 that afternoon, they left on their bikes. The instruction was simple: stay close and don't be gone long. But like so many small childhood decisions, it felt too harmless to scare anybody. Instead of staying near the house, the two of them rode to the parking lot of an old abandoned Winn-Dixie near East Abram Street. To a child, it was the perfect kind of place. There was space. There was a ramp. There was that feeling of freedom children get from the simplest things. After a few minutes, Ricky got nervous. They had gone farther than they were supposed to, and he didn't want to get in trouble. So he rode back toward the house. Amber stayed. And that is the moment this story changes. Because when Ricky left, an opportunity opened. And somewhere nearby, a man saw it. A local resident named Jimmy Kevill witnessed what happened next. From his yard, he saw a black pickup truck approach Amber. He watched a man jump out, grab her, and force her into the truck while she screamed and fought back. Kevill called 911 immediately. Later accounts placed the abduction at around 3:18 p.m. Amber had left at 3:10. 8 minutes. That detail is devastating because it destroys the comforting lie that these moments unfold slowly enough for people to intervene. They often do not. 8 minutes is not enough time to understand what is happening, let alone stop it. By the time someone realizes this is not confusion, not a misunderstanding, not a child getting into a relative's vehicle, it is already too late. Kevill described the suspect as a white or Hispanic man in his 20s or 30s, under 6 feet tall, with a medium build and dark hair. The truck was described as a black, single-cab, full-size pickup, likely from the 1980s or 1990s, with a clear rear window, no stripes, no chrome, and no visible damage. And what makes that detail so chilling is this. Decades later, that description is still one of the most important pieces of the entire case, which tells you everything about how completely this man vanished. Police quickly understood they were likely dealing with the worst-case scenario, a stranger abduction. Amber's bicycle was left behind. There were screams. There was no sign of a family dispute, no indication she had run away, no reason to believe this was anything other than a child, taken by someone who had no obvious connection to her. And cases like that become a race against time almost immediately. Amber's family went on television. Her mother pleaded for her daughter to be returned. Flyers went up. Her face spread through Arlington and beyond. Arlington police and the FBI started interviewing people, chasing leads, and looking for anyone who had seen the truck, the driver, or even the smallest unusual detail from that afternoon. But no one came forward with the piece that changed everything. Then, 4 days later, on January 17, 1996, the case took the turn everyone feared. Amber's body was found in a creek near the Forest Ridge apartment complex in North Arlington, about 6 miles from where she had been abducted. She was found nude except for one sock. She had suffered severe injuries, including wounds to her throat. Investigators later concluded that Amber had been kept alive for roughly 2 days after the abduction and sexually assaulted before she was killed. And then there is another detail that makes the whole case even darker. Investigators came to believe that the place where Amber's body was found may not have been the original dump site at all. Maintenance workers had reportedly been near the creek earlier and had seen nothing. That led police to suspect that rainwater may have moved her body after it had already been discarded. Which means one of the most important crime scenes in the case may have been partially destroyed almost immediately. And that matters, because this story stopped being only about an abduction the moment her body was found. Now it was about something worse, a hidden period of time, a private place no one had found. Hours, maybe more than just hours, in which Amber was alive and in the hands of someone who had time to assault her, hold her, move her, and then dump her body. And that opened the question that still haunts this case. Where was she kept? That location has never been identified. And that is one of the reasons the case still feels so unfinished. It is not just that the killer was never named. It is that parts of the crime itself still sit in darkness. Out of that horror came the system that now carries her name. AMBER stands for America's Missing, Broadcast Emergency Response. It began in 1996, after broadcasters and law enforcement in the Dallas-Fort Worth area worked together to create a rapid warning system for abducted children, a way to get critical information out immediately through radio and television, and later through road signs, phones, and digital alerts. Today, the system exists in all 50 states, the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, parts of tribal territory, and in dozens of countries around the world. According to official Department of Justice figures, by December 18, 2025, Amber Alerts had contributed to the recovery of 1,292 children, with another 241 recovered through wireless emergency alerts, across 81 active plans in the United States. And the reason for that urgency is brutally simple. In child abduction murders, time collapses fast. The FBI has said that historically, 74% of children in these cases are killed within the first 3 hours, and 90% within the first 24. At the same time, true stranger abductions are rare compared with the total number of missing child cases. But when they happen, they are the most dangerous ones. And that is why systems like Amber Alert exist. Still, the real center of this story is not the system. It is Amber. Because when people remember only the alert, something gets lost. The name survives, the mechanism survives, the legacy survives. But the actual crime risks getting buried beneath the very national response it created. And the crime was brutal. Amber did not simply go missing. She was not just taken. She was abducted in broad daylight, held alive for a period of time, sexually assaulted, and murdered by someone who was never formally identified. Over the years, investigators have worked from one central idea. Amber was likely a victim of opportunity, not because she had been followed for days, not because she had been targeted long in advance, but because, in that exact moment, she was suddenly alone. Ricky left, Amber stayed, and someone saw an opening. That possibility has always been especially disturbing, because it suggests the killer may not have gone there specifically for her at all. He may have worked nearby. He may have known the area well. He may have passed through often enough to feel comfortable there. He may have been there for something completely ordinary. Work, errands, traffic, routine. And when he saw a child alone, he acted. Years later, Arlington detective Grant Gilden said one of the central questions had always been whether the killer had some connection to the area where Amber was abducted and where her body was later recovered. And that makes this story even more unsettling, because it means the man may never have been some ghost from outside. He may have been part of the landscape, someone local enough not to stand out, someone ordinary enough not to draw suspicion, someone who went on living after abducting, assaulting, and murdering a 9-year-old girl. The investigation exploded quickly. Arlington police, the FBI, a task force, thousands of tips. Black pickup trucks were tracked down. Registered sex offenders were scrutinized. People close to the family were ruled out. Over the years, more than 7,000 tips would come in. And still, none of them produced the answer her family needed. Police in Arlington have repeatedly said the case has never been truly abandoned, and that new leads still come in. There is also lingering hope around DNA. Investigators have publicly said biological evidence exists, and that newer technology may still help move the case forward. In 2021, they said a small DNA sample would be submitted for advanced testing. Since then, there has been no public announcement of an identification. But the fact that investigators are still talking about forensic potential means the door is not closed. And maybe that is why this case continues to hold people the way it does, because it does not feel impossible. It is old. It is painful. It is deeply damaged by time. But it does not feel impossible. Police know where Amber was taken. They know roughly when she was taken. They know what kind of truck was involved. They know her body was recovered relatively close by. They know the crime happened in a populated urban area. And they know that somebody out there may have seen more than they realized at the time. Maybe this case is not unsolved because nobody knows anything. Maybe it is unsolved because the right person has still not spoken. And that is why Amber Hagerman remains more than a symbol. She is still a victim without justice, a child whose name is known across the country, while the man who took her remains unnamed. In the end, what makes this case so devastating is not only the violence of the crime. It is the contrast, the innocence and the brutality, the speed and the silence, the national impact and the absence of a final answer. The fact that one of the most widely known child abduction victims in American history is still, in the most important sense, unresolved. Amber became a legacy. But before that, she was a life. A girl with a new bike, an older sister, a daughter who should have grown up, a child who should have had a teenage life, graduation, work, love, maybe children of her own. All of that was interrupted in 8 minutes. And if there is one reason to keep telling her story, it is not only to remember the alert that came after. It is to remember what came before. A child was taken in broad daylight. She was kept alive. She was sexually assaulted. She was murdered. And the man who did it remained, for whatever reason, beyond the reach of justice. So remember Amber for what actually matters. Not only for the name on the alert, not only for the national impact, not only for the institutional legacy. Remember her as the little girl at the center of the tragedy. The girl on the pink bicycle. The girl who stayed just a few minutes longer. The child whose loss forced a country to respond. The child who helped save others without being saved herself. Because the Amber Hagerman case is not only the story of a system being born. It is the story of a brutal crime that still has not been answered. And until it is, her story is still unfinished. Thank you to everyone who watched this video. We truly hope this story mattered to you. And if you'd like to support the channel and help us continue creating content, please like the video, leave a comment, share it, and subscribe to the channel. Your support really makes a difference, and we genuinely appreciate every person who helps keep these stories from being forgotten.